This is our Mission Blonde, and it's a Kolsch style ale that originates from Germany. It's an interesting beer. It's it's relatively light in color and body. It's crisp. It's kind of like in between an ale and a lager, and it has characteristics from both. It's refreshing and enjoyable. Great beer for summertime. Great daytime beer in general, but can be very much enjoyed in the evening as well.
Or in the middle of the day, yeah, or or breakfast.
Yeah. Whereas like typical ales, you're going to ferment in the high 60s. This is in the low 60s. After fermentation, we give it kind of like a lagering time, about 40 degrees for several days, and then we cool it down. We crash it to 36 and let it lager. Let it kind of lager for a couple weeks if we can.
So what do you get on the nose when you?
It's interesting. It's kind of I mean, you get some. We use some noble hops in here from Germany. So you definitely you've got that noble hoppiness, kind of like you'd have in a lager or like a pilsner. But there's also subtle fruitiness that comes from the yeast, and it's an authentic Kolsch yeast. So it's a really clean fermenting yeast, but it's got that little fruitiness to actually give it a little more character and make it a little more interesting. But this one's got it's got a great balance to it. That's got a crispness from the kind of like the hops intermingling with the yeast. This is our Mission Hef. It's a Bavarian style Hefeweizen. It's heavy on the banana, clove notes. It's got a lot of yeast in it. This sample in particular is pretty yeasty right now, but it's fresh keg, so it's gonna have some more yeast in the bottom of it. But it's really enjoyable. I've come to really appreciate this beer a lot, and I love drinking it. It's almost like banana candy at times. A little bit of clove, a little banana, a little bubble gum. All in all, very refreshing. A lot of people think that these kind of beers will have fruit in them because there's so much of that character, but there's no fruit added whatsoever. And the style, the Bavarian style Hefeweizen, differs from your standard American wheat in that, by the yeast strain in particular, this is a much more flavorful yeast strain, and so compared to a lot of domestically made Hefeweizens that are more neutral in general, this one's got a lot of flavor. We've got our Mission IPA, India Pale Ale. It's a pretty looking beer. Nice head on it. Big citrus aroma. Tastes pretty awesome too. We use a lot of Cascade and Centennial hops in this IPA. Yeah, big citrus aroma and flavor, from the hops. It's bitter, but it's not overly bitter. Some IPAs are completely destructive of the palate, as you might say. But this one is, I enjoy the balance in this beer quite a bit. I'm a hophead myself, so I could throw another 3 pounds per barrel in this and be happy with it. Well, we hop it in the kettle a couple times in the kettle, end of the boil. A lot of hops in the whirlpool, and then we dry hop it as well. And after dry hopping, I like to let it sit for at least a week, preferably up to 10 to 14 days if possible. And it just kind of, the flavors just kind of meld, and everything just kind of seems to come together with it a lot better. We've actually we've made this beer and fermented it with our Kolsch yeast, and we've also used a more neutral California ale yeast, and so there's different the similarities and the differences between those two yeast strains are noticeable, but I don't know how noticeable to everyone, to me, I can pick them out, and I really haven't been able to decide yet which one I like better. So it's kind of fun playing around like that, and but still keeping the beer within the parameters that we need to keep it.
What are some of the subtle differences that you notice between the Kolsch yeast and the other? What was the other yeast strain?
It's like a California ale yeast, which is one of the most popular yeast strains that brewers use. It's funny because it seems that using the California ale yeast, the beer itself, it seems a little bit hoppier, but almost in a different way. With the Kolsch yeast, there's almost like a hop flavor that comes out that's more resinous, as you might say. The only thing I can really compare it to would be the smell of going into the baling room at the hop yard, or where they bale the hops and then they move them into storage into another room, and there's the hops are off-gassing, and I don't know the exact compound, but it seems that flavor kind of presents itself with the Kolsch yeast, whereas with the California ale yeast, it's more of like everything's harder to identify, but kind of blended together. I don't know.
Interesting.
If I could sum it up like that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Give it a shot.
Okay.
This is Shipwrecked, or double IPA.
Yep.
This is the monster beer that we have on our lineup right now, and there's more to come for sure. But it's double IPA. It's 9.25% alcohol. I think it's in the high 70s for IBUs. So once again, it's not hugely bitter. It's bitter, but it's not overly bitter. It's got a nice balance to it. It's dangerously easy to drink. That's the thing about this beer. Some people come in and they can have a pint and 2 pints, and then they stand up and they realize that
that's the wrecked part of Shipwreck.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of the same hops that go into our IPA we use in the Shipwrecked, with the addition of the CTZs, which is Columbus hops, and we use a lot of those in the dry hop on this beer. This beer's got a little bit more of a malt character, kind of to balance out the bitterness and the high alcohol. So we throw in a little bit some darker specialty malts, crystal malt, in the grist to give it that character. The one really cool thing about this beer is that you can take a bottle fresh and sit it down in a cooler or in your fridge for a month or 2 months and pop it open and drink it, and it's still going to be really tasty and enjoyable. And over the course of a couple months, it almost kind of morphs into a barley wine, which is something that I enjoy about double IPAs. Not all of them can kind of go that route.
Is that sort of? I mean, does the malt flavor come a little bit more forward?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, the malt, having that malt there, and a little bit of extra, especially malt, seems to, as the hops fade, because naturally the hop character is going to fade with the hoppy beers, but that malt comes up to kind of balance it out, and you can get this beer in a bottle, and even after 3 months, you crack it open and enjoy it. It's going to be delicious. So.